What's up, guys? Today I'm making a video. Today's video is a little different than the normal videos that I do. I want to discuss with you guys the Holley Sniper ecosystem. At least for Oldsmobile, modified engines, something with a larger camshaft, something other than stock. We'll just leave it at that for now. So as you can see under the hood of my car here, I have the Holley Sniper setup. This is the Gen 1 Sniper. I bought this throttle body setup in 2021. However, I just got around to installing it last year. We'll do a little preface with what led us to the Sniper. Before the Sniper, I had a Holley HP 4150 double pumper carb on my car. It had no choke. I'm in Florida. Technically, engine temperatures never get below, 80, 90, 100 degrees. And so starting it up without a choke is not really a big deal. I know a few other guys that, run carburetors, don't even pump them, and, just no problems. I know without a choke, it's going to idle a little rough, but I was having issues to where I would actually have to stay on the throttle a little bit to keep it running. The great thing was the car wasn't really running, so I wasn't having to play around with it that much. I didn't dial in the timing at that time. I hadn't tweaked the carburetor, and really fine-tuned dialed it in. Just basic setup. So from that point, I was having problems with the power steering in the car. And some of the issues that I had led to, if I was trying to start the car and bleed the power steering, I had the car jacked up, turning back and forth. It was a real pain to start the car, and I would literally have to hold it at like 2,000 RPMs to get it to not want to die out. And I'd have to do that for maybe a minute or two because of the no choke scenario. And while I was trying to focus on turning the wheel back and forth and hold the throttle down at the same time, it was not a fun experience. I wanted something very reliable. I wanted something a little more turnkey, a little less race. I was going to get rid of that carburetor and grab another carburetor with a choke on it. And at that time I was talking to a friend of mine, and he's like, well, why don't you do the Holley Sniper? So I had a $600+ carburetor. I had my HEI distributor with my MSD, brand new MSD ignition module, my MSD cap and rotor, my Excel super coil, my MSD spark plug wires, all Holley, under Holley's umbrella, MSD, Holley, Excel, spark plugs. I put the throttle body on, and I got the car running, but never really drove it because I was working on a bunch of other things, getting the motor all back together, finishing up the power steering and all of that, which the Sniper allows me to start the car fine. We don't have an issue with that. So I was able to start it, get the power steering working, and then started working on other things with the car and painting the car and things of that nature. So years went by and the car had not started. Since I owned the Holley Sniper, I had basically it was sitting in the box for 2-3 years. And so we painted the car, then I got the car running last year. When I did, I still had the HEI on it. I was trying to fine tune that and the Holley Sniper system, so I said, you know what, let's just do the Holley Hyperspark. Hyperspark distributor, ignition box, ignition coil. This system, when I bought it, was about $1,600, $1,700 for the throttle body. I had the inline fuel pump, and when I was going to hook that up under the car to get the throttle body running, I decided maybe it's best if I run the in-tank setup that they have for a G-body, because I have a brand new gas tank. So I put the gas tank in, I installed the in-tank fuel system setup with the Hydramat from Holly, another $500. Get that all wired in, and I wound up never get the car started with the Holly Sniper EFI until I had the Hyperspark and everything else. I wired it all together. I did a lot of research. I watched all the Holly videos. I talked to, again, the buddy of mine that has installed a lot of these Holly Sniper setups without, too much issue. A couple that needed to have a tune and, things like that, but without too much of an issue. Pretty much plug and play, so I've been told. I have the O2 sensor. I watched the Holly video where the guy's got a header laying in front of him where you can see the 4 tubes of the collector come together, and he says 1 to 10 inches from the collector, and he's got the O2 sensor drilled into the tailpipe. I literally looked at that video, measured exactly my header, and drilled it into the tailpipe. I have full exhaust after that because you need at least 18 inches of pipe. No problem. The car starts just fine. When it's under load, there's an issue. I put a fuel pressure gauge on it to test to make sure I had proper fuel pressure, to make sure that there wasn't an issue with the pump or the lines or the filter or any of that I ran. No issue there. Everything is feeding to the throttle body fine. The ignition, the base ignition was set, static ignition was set, so that everything is syncing properly in the Holly system with the Hyperspark. All of that was installed correctly. Again, I turn the key and the car starts right up, not a problem. Everybody that knows Oldsmobile engines, base timing, 20 degrees. Most of the Oldsmobile engines, this is a 1971 Olds 350 Rocket. These motors were 275 horsepower factory motors. The bottom end is factory with the exception of some bolts, some new bearings, rehoned the cylinders. Everything was within spec. It was like a 30,000 mile, 40,000 mile motor that I bought off of somebody. The bottom end was immaculate. I took off all the factory bearings. There was no wear in them, so I put new bearings, new rings, honed the cylinders. Everything was within spec. Gaskets, did a little bit of head work, did a valve job, cut the valve seats for positive Viton seals, and then I put in my Comp Cam's camshaft, which has a lift of like 518 on exhaust and intake, 110 lobe separation, a few other things, and got all of that set up. I have my 1.7 ratio roller rocker arms. The thing is, with the carburetor and the old distributor, the motor ran fantastic. Barely touched the brake, hit the gas, spin the tires, let off, ride through, spinning the tires, fantastic, no problem. It was just the other issues that I had that led me to go to the Sniper. Plus, I knew the carburetor was going to need to be dialed in, and the timing and all of that kind of stuff. So this allows me to do all that electronically, or possibly hire someone to tune the motor properly. Even remotely. Fantastic. All sounds great. Electric fuel pump, everything. So I have the whole Holly setup. Fuel pump, I have new aluminum lines, rubber lines, where it needs to be, then to aluminum. I have the fuel filter right down here, proper length of everything. Everything's installed proper. The wiring is separated. There's no RFI interference. The lights on this box don't do anything. The lights on my handheld, nothing ever turns red. Nothing's ever given a warning sign or anything like that. I've doubled up the grounds. I have extra ground to motor, to frame, to body. The throttle body itself is ground to the intake. I've gone above and beyond to make sure that everything was proper. I then changed my spark plug wires again and bought Mallory specific EFI or RFI suppression spark plug wires. These are not the custom length ones. I have a set that I'm going to cut to length, but instead of taking the time to do all of that, these were $40, not expensive, so I figured I would just get a set that was pre-made, even though they're not, you know, cut the length like I want, just to rule out spark plug wires. I changed spark plugs because everybody told me, those E3 plugs won't work. And I bought some NGK-V spark plugs with the correct heat range for my setup. Zero difference. Car starts the same, runs the same. Zero difference. As with the old cheap spark plug wires I had on, the new Mallory spark plug wires, the E3 spark plugs, now the NGK spark plugs. Zero difference. So for about, I painted the car last year in June of 2024. This is February of 2025. And shortly after that, got the car running. Set the timing and everything. And that's what leads us to here. I have the base timing set at 20 for the car, and I have moved that up and down. If I go down to, like, you know, Chevy motor specs to 16, I get nasty ping in the ignition, and I get popping and burning out of the throttle body. You can see the dirt that's in the throttle body plates, and you can actually see the carbon up on my freshly painted hood here from the flames shooting out of the throttle button. And I'm not trying to hot rod the car. This is cruising around my neighborhood, making a right turn, hitting the throttle, you know, a quarter of the way, just normal acceleration, 20 miles an hour. The car backfires and shuts off. I've gone up to 24 with the initial timing. The camshaft is, you know, bigger for an Olds motor. It's nothing crazy. And again, motor, everything ran perfectly fine before the whole Holley system. The motor factory, the 71 is rated at like 9.3 to 1 compression. It's probably right around there, 9 to 1. Perfect for the street. I don't expect more than 350, 400 horsepower, somewhere in that range. You know, I wasn't looking for anything more crazy than that. I wanted to stick with the Oldsmobile motor. I love them. They're fantastic engines. If something ever happens to it, I will probably grab an LS for the lower half and put this was my goal anyway with the whole Holley setup, right? Grab an LS for the lower half and put a 4-barrel intake on it and still use my Holley setup in the LS engine. I won't be able to probably use the Hyperspark, I don't think those have distributors. I don't know. Anyways, that was, you know, my thought. If something ever happened to this, I just put an LS bottom end in it. I'm going to be putting a 4L60E trans in my car. I got a 700 R4, and I would just rather control everything electronically. Well, other reasons for that, but I want to put a 4L60E, which there's a controller through Holley. You know, it's another $500, and it'll plug in, and it'll all be able to be tweaked by the 3.5-inch handheld shift points, all of that kind of stuff. So, you know, they offer everything that I'm looking for. Here's the problem. 6 months or more with a fuel injection system that's supposed to be self-learning, timing that's set properly, 20 initial, we have 40 top-end timing. All the Olds guys say, you know, I've never seen a situation where it needs more than 36 at wide open throttle timing. I put it to 36, I get pinging and I get popping out of the throttle body. I put it to 44, and it's still okay, but I can just tell it's at the edge of being a little too advanced. I bring it back to 40, and it seems to run pretty good. I might try to bump it up to like 41, 42, see if it gets any better. I have the cruise timing set to right about 42, but I haven't really got to cruise the car around. And when I'm cruising, it sounds like the timing's a little off. But with 20 initial and around 40 wide open throttle timing, I don't get any pinging. I don't get any popping and spitting out of the throttle body. So it seems like that's really close to where I need to be. Fine tuning would get handled by a tuner, right? So I'm in the ballpark. I've set those numbers. I tried to let Holly do it. Chose a stock style cam, a street strip cam, a race cam, and even the race cam doesn't come anywhere near specs that make the car run properly. Yes, my cam is going to provide no vacuum. Fantastic. This is an electronic system. It doesn't need vacuum. It doesn't have vacuum secondaries. There's nothing running off a vacuum on the Holly Sniper. I have an electric vacuum pump for my brakes. I have all the vacuum that I need for my transmission to shift properly because there's nothing else running on vacuum. The only other thing that will use vacuum will be the AC, and that only pulls vacuum when you switch between like floor and vent and defrost. Nothing else is pulling vacuum, so I don't need any vacuum, right? I have a little bit of vacuum for my transmission. The 4L63 will be electronic. Nothing needs vacuum. I have an electronic vacuum pump for brakes. So I have called Holly Tech Support, and the last time I called, I think I spoke with Raven. I've emailed, and I think I spoke with Raven. I think I social media, Facebooked, and spoke with Raven, and she told me to check the fuel pressure. First, she told me to check to make sure that the throttle plate was opening all the way and that the sprayers were spraying, and all of that was fine. She told me to check the fuel pressure. I checked that. She said to put a gauge just here. When the car starts, perfect. I can rev it sitting here under no load, and it revs totally fine, right through the RPM range. No problem. Sounds strong. Great. It's only when I put the car in drive and it's under load that it has a problem. I spoke with a couple of tuners. They told me you need to put a gauge on a tube so that you can watch it under load, because what good is it going to do telling you fuel pressure when it's fine, not under load? So I did that. I had the gauge, up. I got a long enough hose that I was able to hold it right inside my driver's side window. Air fuel ratio on the car is, between 12 and 14. I did watch in the data log today. It spiked up to like 19 or 20 at one point. So the problem that I'm having is that the car falls on its face. I go to accelerate, and it's almost like you have, way too much carburetor or way too much fuel dumping down the system, or the engine's flooded. But here's the problem. Today, I pulled the car out, and what I do is I hold the brakes and I bring up the stall. The stall torque converter is like 2,600 to 3,000. I bring up the stall in the car, it comes up to about 22, 23, 2,400, and then the tires start to break loose in the back. Now, I did this last week, and I get the tires spinning a little bit. If I let off the brake and continue to try to give it more throttle, or even if I'm just sitting there holding the brake, trying to give it more throttle, the car doesn't rev up higher. It gets to about 2,500, 3,000, and if you've ever watched Street Outlaws or some of these race cars when they're sitting on the trans brake and they're pump, 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 that's what the car sounds like it's doing. It comes up to 2,500, 3,000, and it's almost like I have a rev limiter set there, and it's just banging against it. It won't go any higher. I can let off the throttle. I can go wide open throttle. I can try to fade it in to get it to push past, and it'll start to push past a little bit. And then as soon as I let off the brake to, give it to go, it falls on its face. Today, one time, I got it to push past, and it revved up to, 5,000, 5,500, something like that. I let off the brake, and it was going right through because I had it past. If I just try to half throttle and then ease into it to take off from the line, it comes up to 2,500, 3,000, and it and then goes, right? Once it gets up above 3,500 or 4,000 RPMs, the car wants to haul ass. But it's that 2,500 to 3,000, it gets stuck and it doesn't want to push past it. One of the tuners told me, just try to keep your foot in it, don't try to let off. It doesn't even pop out of the throttle body. It just doesn't go. He told me that it might be acceleration enrichment that needs to be adjusted, that it's not giving it enough fuel at that point. So I did that. I rode through it with my foot on the gas. I got a data log. So I email Holly and I explain the situation. Now I can upgrade from this Holly Sniper 1 to a Holly Sniper 2 for basically the same price I paid for a Holly Sniper 1 for $1,200. I don't need any of the wiring. All I need is their harness and the throttle body. That's it. I don't want to pay another $1,200 to put it on my car and have it not work. That just seems stupid to me. So I talked to Holly because I've seen on some message boards some people say, you know, oh, well, you know, talk to Holly, you know, blah, 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 and they'll upgrade you to a Holly 2, Sniper 2 if, you know, you're having issues with your Sniper 1. My TPS will not come past 94%. I checked that sitting in the car, pushing the gas pedal. I put a new throttle cable on. I adjusted it. So today I brought the handheld out under the hood here, and I opened the throttle plates all the way by hand. I even took my extra spring that I have on off. Opened it by hand, 94%. That's the max that it will get. I looked down in the throttle body at the throttle plates. The primary is wide open. The secondary, I can move it manually inside there, maybe like 1%, but it looks to be 100% wide open within a variance of like 1%. It's 94% at the TPS. I'm thinking maybe because it's not coming up to 97 to 100%, it's not engaging that wide open throttle timing. However, today when I did my testing, I had my gauges pulled up on my little Holly screen, and it was giving me my timing. Whatever I had set to wide open throttle, so 40, 42, 44, it was giving me that timing when I was, you know, foot on the brake, stalling the car out, trying to get it to rev up. So it's giving me my wide open throttle timing, even though it's only showing 94% on the TPS sensor. The cruise setting was a little weird, which I adjusted that because it was giving me some high timing when I was only at like, 1,000 RPMs, because it's like coming up to like you're cruising. Because the idle bounces around quite a bit. So I send all this information to Holly because the last couple times I talked to somebody on the phone, it was like they gave me a brush off and passed me along. I typed up, you know, a story, this whole video, on their website, submitted it. I get an email response basically telling me that they need to know the config file, the data log, where my O2 sensor is placed, and my cam specs. So I explained to him that it wasn't recording data logs properly. We had a custom configuration file. I tried again to go back to a basic configuration file and then went back to the custom one because the basic one just doesn't work right. I downloaded the data log that I got from my testing today and sent him that, even though it doesn't display the time and date format accurately. I sent him the configuration file. I sent him the full cam specs, and the response I get back is, wow, that's a big cam. That's like a W31 cam. I already told you this is a 1971 350 rocket motor. His response was, that's like an early 70s W31 cam. Yes, exactly. That's how I was building this motor, to be spec'd like an early 70s Olds Cutlass Rocket 350 with a little more pep and a little modern technology. I wanted a nice 350, 400 horsepower street car that was reliable, that I could just turn the key, get in, start, and go. Of course, I won't do that quite like a modern car. I let it warm up for a few minutes, and I'm not expecting that extreme reliability. But just something that was a little easier to start, a little easier to maintain, something that could be, done, tuned, tested, you can get some better readings on. And I've spent the last 3 days emailing him back and forth. The first, he asked me for info, so I told him, I didn't have a data log, I didn't have the config file. I gave him everything else. I gave him pictures of where my O2 sensor are. I gave him my full cam specs. And the response I get back is, that's about the farthest back you would ever want your O2 sensor. I sent him the picture of the video of the Holley guy installing it. It's exactly where he put it, 1 to 10 inches from the collector, from where the collector tubes come together. My collector tubes come together, your collector is maybe 8 to 10 inches after the collector tubes. Well, I cut off the end of the collector and my 3-inch pipe is welded to my header, and it's right there, maybe 8 inches after where the collector tubes come together. It's at a 15 to 30 degree up angle. Not anywhere near interfering with anything. The wiring runs up, doesn't interfere with anything. I gave him the config file and the data log today, after going back and forth for 3 days and getting nothing. And he tells me, that's a big cam. That's like a W31 cam. And then he says, the car is rich at idle. And he shows me a portion of the map configuration that is way down in the bottom left corner, which is just going to be like your idle information that doesn't really have anything to do with anything, because the car starts and idles perfectly fine. Starts right up. I'll do that at the end of the video just so Holley can see that. That's not my problem. My problem is I can't drive the car. $3,000 into a full Holley ecosystem, and the car is not drivable because I'm afraid it's going to pop out of the throttle body and shut off. So what do I do? What would you guys do? You spend that much money on something and it doesn't work. You call Holley tech support, they tell you to do one thing, call them back, and maybe that was the answer I got on the phone. Maybe they can look into something else. So I email Holley tech support and I get zero information after 3 days back and forth pertaining to why I messaged them in the first place, with a big long typed message that disappeared into cyberspace, so I can't even copy it and paste it and try to send it to somebody else to get some information. I would have to retype everything all out again. And I have sent the guy via email more information than I think anyone would ever need, because I wanted him to have everything that he would need so he could tell me if it's something stupid and simple or what's going on. I feel like with the timing and everything, I'm right on the brink of everything being, really, really dialed in. The throttle body's not performing. It's either dumping too much gas, not dumping enough gas. There's some kind of issue going on within the throttle body from, my assessment of how things work. If it was a carburetor, I would say maybe the accelerator pump was bad. I would say, maybe it was too rich. But I had a 750 carb on the car, a 750 race carb, and the motor took it no problem. Sure, your eyes watered from it running rich, but it took it no problem. Whatever it didn't use, it dumped out of the tailpipe. And I mean, my spark plugs, when I would pull them out with the carb on there, they were always clean. Maybe a slight on the rich side, but not too rich. This doesn't seem like it's too rich. It seems like it's not getting enough fuel. It seems like it's starving for fuel. Like I'm trying to give it gas and it's trying to push past, but it just can't get there. I know I don't have a lot of miles on the car. I maybe have 20 miles, just basic, driving up to, 30, 35 miles an hour cruising, but nothing crazy at this point because I don't want to go out and get in traffic and have the car backfire and shut off. So what do I do? what do I do, Holly? Who do I send this video to actually get an answer and to get some assistance on how to get the car running properly? If you guys have any information you can give me, if you guys have any tips or tricks, anything, by all means, please comment down below. If you guys have had issues with Holly and you got through to someone by sending an email, by phone calling, whatever it might be, please let me know by commenting down below. I called Holly 3 times in the last 3 days. On their website, their hours of operation say 8 to 5, Monday through Friday, CST. I called the last couple of days and it would like ring a few times and then go like so either the line was busy or something, I don't know. Today I called at 20 after 4 and I got a message saying they're only open until 4:15 Central Standard Time. So I don't know where to go from here. You know, do I rip all of this off? Do I go grab an ACES EFI and keep my Holly Hyperspark? I don't even think I can keep my Holly Hyperspark. I would have to go pull this off and go to, you know, grab an MSC distributor because I had a buddy that needed my HEI. So I don't even have my HEI that was on the car. I had somebody that needed the HEI, so I sent it to him. I sold my carburetor because I'm not going to sit on a $600 carburetor that had 10 miles on it and took a loss on that. Just, you know, I didn't want it just to sit around and go bad. I'd rather somebody be using it. So at this point, you know, there's this much money dumped in, and what do I do? What do I do? Last thing I'm going to do is just start the car to show you how easily the car starts. She's cold. She hasn't run. It is approximately 5 or 6 p.m. I have not run the car since 8 o'clock this morning. So this will be a cold start. You're going to hear my electric vacuum pump kick on first. And I am just standing, not touching the plate, not touching the gas pedal, not touching anything. The system just purged. I typically wait 5 to 10 seconds and the vacuum pump will fill the reservoir and shut off. And we'll just turn the heat. When it first starts, the IAC kicks in, it brings it up to about 1200 RPMs, and then it immediately comes down to about 700, which is where I have the idle set. I'll probably bring it up to about 800, so it's just not as choppy. Starts fine, idle's fine, fine under no load. Explain the problem, Holly. And yes, I have proper gas in my gas tank, more than a half a tank, so that there's not sloshing around because it's not specifically an EFI tank. And that's it. So the last thing I just want to say is thanks Autometer for the t-shirt. You guys are great. Love the new gauges. We're going to get all that set up soon. Thanks for sending that along in the banner and everything. Somebody explained to me. Thanks guys. We'll catch you in the next one.